7th of May 2024. We have present Councillors John Anderson, Archie Buchanan, Matthew Buchanan, Jerry Convery. We don't have Margaret Cooper. We have present Councillor Joe Fagan, Grant Ferguson. Can't see Councillor Ferguson Miller in the meeting. We have present Councillor Elise Frame, and we don't have Councillor Gray, and we have present Councillor Susan Kerr, Hugh MacDonald, Monique McAdams, Elaine McDougall, and Kirsten Robb. Just check if Councillor Scott is in the meeting. No, I don't see Councillor Scott, and we also have present Councillors David Watson and Kirsty Williams. I'll hand back to the Chair now. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Item 1, declaration of interest. Do we have any interest for the members? No. Okay, thank you very much. Item 2, minutes of previous meeting. You've all had a chance to read them, no doubt. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please?
I'll move them.
Thanks, Jerry. Seconder? John Anderson. Okay, items for noting. We have two representatives from Scottish Fire and Rescue, who are Group Commander Tommy Key, and Station Commander Andy Crawford, who will speak to their annual report. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. As the Chair had highlighted, I'm Group Commander Tommy Kay. I'm Head of Prevention, Protection and Preparedness across Lanarkshire. I've also got managerial responsibility for 5 of the fire stations across Lanarkshire. Today, I'm supported by Station Commander Andy Crawford, who has recently taken over as the Station Commander for East Kilbride. However, as he is reasonably recent to post, I thought it would be unfair to allow him to come here today. So Andy is also the duty officer, and if he has to get called away, then he will have to leave the meeting. So just for everybody to be aware of. Today, I'm here to present the 23-24 annual performance and activity report on behalf of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. The annual report will look at the 6 KPIs from the local and fire and rescue plan. Thanks, Lynn. And the 6 KPIs are the reduction of dwelling fires, a reduction of fire casualties and fatalities, reduction of deliberate fire setting, reduction of fires in non-domestic premises, reduction in road traffic collisions, and a reduction of unwanted fire alarm signals. So first of all, the first page there is about all deliberate primary fires. So I think, first of all, what is a deliberate primary fire? So that's something that would generally attribute an insurance claim against it. So that can be a building or indeed can be a car fire. So we can see that there has been a reduction to 26 this or last fiscal year, and that's 10 less than the year before. The Fire and Rescue Service doesn't sit and think, well, that's a great result that we've seen 10 less. What we actually do is work with partner agencies, including Police Scotland and the Council, and make sure that we're sharing our intelligence so that we can continue to drive the figures down further. Next, we have deliberate secondary fires. So a secondary fire is grass or rubbish. Again, we've seen a significant drop down to 143. However, again, we do work with partners to make sure that we continue to drive that down further, and we share intelligence to make sure that we can maximise the reductions that are available across the service. Next we have is accidental dwelling fires. Again, we're seeing a slight reduction down to 46 compared to the previous year. What we are seeing is that 2/3 of those fires originated in the kitchen, and almost half of those were due to either a distraction or somebody falling asleep. Just 3 of these incidents required us to have fire service intervention. The majority of the fires actually just required us to remove the heat source from the item that was on fire. In terms of accidental dwelling fires, we also still have been conducting home fire safety visits, and over the period we conducted 445 home fire safety visits in premises within the report. 224 of them were high risk from fire. All accidental other building fires, so other buildings are your commercial entities. So again, we've seen quite a drop in down to 6, but what we are doing is making sure our fire safety enforcement team are out visiting all the premises that are subject to fire and offering fire safety advice. But what we're also doing is making sure that these buildings are fire safety compliant, and where they're not, we are carrying out enforcement action or indeed providing guidance and support to make sure that these buildings are back to where they should be in terms of fire safety standards. All fatal fire casualties. So I think the tragic bit in this report is over the period we had 2 fire deaths in this period. That was 1 in East Kilbride and 1 in Glassford. Again, we continue to work with partners to see if we can get referrals to the service to conduct home fire safety visits, which has the potential to stop us having fire deaths. But where we do have fire deaths, we will be running case conferences that will be held by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service when we receive permission from the Procurator Fiscal to see if we can try and stop that happening in future. I won't get into any more details regarding the fire deaths. Happy to move on again. Non-fatal fire casualties. So we have a reduction again of 11. Again, these are just people who have went to hospital. There has not been any severe injuries as a result of these 11. Again, we continue to offer home fire safety visits to the people that were subject to those fires, and we continue to work with partners, sharing intelligence and with housing associations to try and maximise the impact that we can have as a fire and rescue service in reducing fire deaths and fire casualties. Next, we have road traffic collisions. This one, we are seeing a slight spike. However, the national context is that we're seeing a rise in road traffic collisions nationally. I am the joint road safety lead for Scotland from the Scottish Fire and Rescue point of view for prevention work. And we have got a hell of a lot of work going on nationally to try and reduce road traffic collisions. And we will continue to try and drive these down. Again, we do share information with partners, and we are doing a lot of work with Transport Scotland, Cycling Scotland. We have got our own Biker Down initiative, and we're also doing work with secondary schools to try and reduce the impact that these have, because the majority of accidents were happening is with young drivers. Special service fatal and non-fatal casualties. So again, looks like a very negative figure when we see 55. However, it is actually a very positive figure. It's about the wider work that we do within the communities that we serve, the wider work that we're doing with ambulance service in terms of providing help to do CPR, where the ambulance service are struggling for assistance. We're also helping force open doors to allow partner agencies to go into buildings. So it's about the greater work that we're doing, so that will always see a rise, and we continue to support the work that we do to the wider community. Next is unwanted fire alarm signals, or UFAS as it's well known. There's a significant drop there. Why we're seeing a significant drop is in July last year we changed our approach to unwanted fire alarm signals, where we put the duty back to the duty holder who holds the risk to manage their buildings, and we are seeing a huge benefit of doing that work. When we look at the benefits to the fire and rescue service alone, it means that we're not doing blue light journeys, which is endangering people when we're going to buildings. There's an environmental impact where we're not using our diesel fire engines to go to these types of incident, but also by passing the risk back to the duty holder, we're actually getting them to actually take ownership of their buildings to drive an increase in fire safety standards. That brings the report itself to a close. However, I would like to also highlight that as the Fire and Rescue Service, we have conducted, in addition to all that work, 351 engagement sessions in the East Kilbride area. That includes post-domestic incident response, which is after there's been a fire where we went in and tried to give the correct support and information to people so that they don't have another. We have done community safety talks to schools. That includes bonfire talks at the relevant time of the year to try and lessen the impact that one, it has on us as an emergency service, but also to try and reduce some of the antisocial behaviour that we're seeing nationally linked to bonfires. And we're also doing risk recognition training to partner agencies, and that is where partners refer people into us to get home fire safety visits. And again, it's about getting the people most at risk, so that we can link back to not actually having fire deaths and fire casualties. And I'd like to thank you for that, Chair.
My colleagues, would anyone, any colleagues like to ask any of the fire officers any? Oh, sorry, I see you now, David. Okay, David.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, as a comment and a thank you to the officers of the Fire Brigade, that the recent incident at the Acorn Park nursing home in East Kilbride in Glen Road, it wasn't the easiest access and it wasn't the easiest fire, I'm sure, to deal with, but it's a reminder of the risks that the fire service put themselves at, and I thank you for that. I know the local residents are deeply appreciative of the work that was carried out by the fire service and the other emergency services at that awkward moment in time. Getting on to that, moving on from that, I mean, the nursing homes, it was a derelict building, and is that a problem area for you, that derelict properties in the town, that you know, is it something that's coming to fruition, or was possibly Castle Glen thing maybe a sort of one-off situation? And second question I've got is that you mentioned road traffic collisions. We've got a problem, an ongoing problem in East Kilbride with we'll call it boy racers get up and down the Queensway, Kingsway and Stuartfield Way, etc. Is that taken into the, because I noticed the figure is quite high, well, comparison to other areas in East Kilbride West, is that a reason for some of these figures, and if so, what can be done to try and reduce these issues? Thanks very much.
First of all, thank you very much for your comments. In relation, I'll start with the road traffic collisions, if you don't mind first. In terms of enforcement, clearly the biggest way to stop boy racers or anybody who's not complying with the Road Traffic Act is through enforcement, and clearly that does not sit with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. However, we are part of a wider partnership, and in consultation with the police, Transport Scotland and various other partners, if we identify there is a specific need in a specific area, then we do the education on the behalf of Police Scotland or with Police Scotland on occasions. And we are happy to go and do educational work. As you can guess, trying to engage with young drivers can be very, very difficult. And that's why there are various initiatives that are going on throughout Scotland where instead of prosecution, there's an appetite to take people through driver intervention programmes. And it's something I think, you know, that would be worthwhile coming to the area, but it's certainly not here yet. In terms of derelict buildings is always a worry to us. We see buildings all over Scotland that are not necessarily secure. We are now seeing on TikTok, YouTube, people who are entering derelict buildings for whatever reason they are, and they're posting videos. And the last thing we want is anybody in derelict buildings due to the nature of their derelict for a reason. The big thing for us is it's about working with the duty holders to make sure that the buildings are secured so that nobody can get in them. And then if they do get in them, that if they go to try and set fire to them, that there's at least a level of control measures in place. But it's not a huge issue that I'm seeing across Lanarkshire at this time.
Sorry, Gladys.
Thanks very much, Chair. That was a really interesting report. And I had a meeting with Roads, and Roads, it's funny, they said something very similar about road traffic accidents. And they feel that post-COVID, that a lot of drivers of all ages were taking more chances. So therefore they were seeing an increase in RTAs, and it's something that I've actually written to the police about. But that's interesting, obviously, that that you're corroborating exactly what roads are saying, and it's worrying. And I know it's a difficult thing. I think the schools. I was also thinking about car showrooms. If there was the possibility of putting information out there for young drivers that are going for their first car. Just a thought. But thanks very much. That was a very interesting report. Thank you.
Thanks, Gladys. Nobody else? Okay, thanks very much. Next on our agenda is East Kilbride Citizens Advice. Michelle Campbell. Over to you, Michelle.
Firstly, I'm not used to speaking through these things. Firstly, I would like to apologise for the fact that I've had to put this off twice so far. As you will hear, my voice is still not a lot better.
You need to stop shouting all your stuff.
And that's obviously what the problem is, yeah. So hopefully I'll make it through this and you'll be able to understand it. So basically I'm going to give you a wee presentation on demonstrating the value of good advice. So to give a wee bit of a background, the Citizens Advice Network comprises of the Citizens Advice Bureaus, Citizens Advice Scotland and the Extra Help Unit that we now have as well. And we form Scotland's largest independent advice and advocacy network. Each of the 59 member Citizens Advice Bureaus, or CABs, is an independent charity with a local board of volunteer trustees. Excuse me. The CAB network delivers frontline advice services at over 300 locations across Scotland currently. So, what do we do? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's right, sorry, I can't see in distance, sorry. So what do we do? CAB's aims are to ensure that individuals do not suffer through a lack of knowledge of their rights and their responsibilities, which is the bit that they quite like to forget about. They like to know their rights, but not so much about their responsibilities, or of the services available to them, or through an inability of them to express their needs effectively and equally, and to exercise a responsible influence on the development of social policies and services, both locally and on a Scottish-wide basis. So Citizens Advice Bureaus provide free, confidential advice across a range of issues, including benefits, debt, employment, housing, legal, health, community care, utilities, immigration, you name it, we do it. So why are any bureau, not just East Kilbride Citizens Advice Bureau, but why are any bureau needed? So we're recognised and trusted by the public and by the government and other agencies, as you see from every letter that comes through your letterbox. If you don't know what to do about it, speak to a Citizens Advice Bureau. Good advice also prevents outcomes that are expensive for the public purse and often disastrous for the person and the families that are experiencing them. Support from the CAB not only helps people to achieve financial gains, but can prevent more costly negative outcomes such as homelessness, excuse me, unemployment, bankruptcy, and poor mental health and well-being problems. We put money back into the purses and pockets of people through client financial gains. A CAB then supports jobs and wages in the community and across Scotland. Bureaus work with some of the most vulnerable citizens in our community. Bureaus across Scotland are audited quarterly, annually, and we undergo a full audit every 3 years to ensure that we continue to provide consistent, quality assured services which meet agreed national standards. And all cabs are licensed by the Financial Conduct Authority to provide debt counselling and management. So East Kilbride locality, I don't really need to tell any of you about East Kilbride locality. So I just did a general thing about the general population and the percentages of age ranges. Obviously East Kilbride has a slightly higher than the national average of pensionable age people, due to the fact that we were a new town or are a new town. And that obviously has other implications for people. In 2023-24, 4.4% of the East Kilbride locality was given advice by UK CAB, a percentage which continues to grow annually. And already in 24-25, we've managed to expand our outreach because we are aware, due to the cost of living crisis, that people can't always make their way to us. So we're trying to now get back out into the community as much as we can to be present within local areas for local people. So 2023-24 summary for East Kilbride CAB. We supported 3,309 clients who presented with 7,449 level 1 issues, which has increased from the previous year, demonstrating again the demand for our service. We achieved a recorded financial gain of just over £1.5 million for local people, and for every pound of core funding that we returned £29 in a client financial gain to the local area. We brought in an additional £164,000 of project funding to the local area. And we were open for 242 days last year, which equates to us seeing on average 14 people per day and 31 issues a day being dealt with. The top area of advice that we give now is benefits, which has changed over the last few years. It used to be debt advice was the highest that we dealt with. It's now benefits, which has risen drastically. Again, due to the impact that COVID had, and then due to the impact of the cost of living crisis. So it sits at 42% of what we do. And the top 5 areas of benefit advice that we've dealt with were adult disability payment, universal credit, attendance allowance, pension credit, and employment and support allowance. Now, the attendance allowance and pension credit has increased drastically again, and that's for older people. And again, that shows you that there's an awful lot of older people are really struggling with the impact that the cost of living rises have been having on them. We used to have to argue with people to come in to see us about looking to see whether they could get anything else. Now people are coming through the door every day looking for benefit checks to be done to make sure that they are getting everything that they're entitled to. So the second area of advice is debt advice, which sits at 20% of what we do. And the top 5 areas that we've dealt with in the last year are credit card debt and unsecured personal loan debt, bankruptcy, council tax debt, unfortunately, and utilities debt. And that, again, has been a change for us because council tax and utility debt used to be a lot lower than what we're now dealing with. Credit card and unsecured personal loan debt has always been extremely high in East Kilbride. And that's around, historically, people from East Kilbride might have a higher income or a better income and are able to get more credit. So once it turns from credit to debt, it becomes a massive issue for them because they can get more credit than potentially some other areas within South Lanarkshire. So the values of volunteering. East Kilbride CAB is a volunteer-led service. We have 17 volunteers who provide our core advice service, and we're also about to start a new advisor training programme later this month. All CAB volunteers gain valuable work experience with the service and have access to ongoing training and development opportunities. The volunteer advisors provide 73 hours of advice on average every week. Volunteer advisors undergo a robust 4-stage competence-based advisor training programme with us, and it's seen as a really good it's seen as a really good example for when they're looking for work. If volunteer advisors were currently to be paid an appropriate salary, it would cost an additional £185,000 a year to run the service at the minimum wage level. Our volunteers are aged between 22 to over 70 and come from a range of backgrounds. Some are retired and others are quite often actively seeking work. And volunteers also provide admin support and are trustees on our governing board. So specialist projects that we have at the moment. So we have our greenhouse outreach project. We have our community links project, pension wise service, the Straven outreach service, the Money Talks Plus service, help to claim, Energy Best Deal and Big Energy Saving Network, which run in the winter months and are for utilities. We are part of Connected East Kilbride, and we work in partnership with Healthy and Active East Kilbride and the Kilbride Hospice for that. We provide the Scottish Migration Service within South Lanarkshire, and we have an outreach at the East Kilbride Community Food Bank currently at the moment. That slide is just to show what you can access when you walk through the door of East Kilbride Cab. In fact, you can access that when you walk through the door of most cabs. So we provide most of the things I've already said, but the Armed Services Advice Project, which is a national service for veterans, that's provided through the CAB service. The Patients Advice and Support Service, that's the complaints service for the NHS, that's provided by the CAB service across Scotland. We have a gambling awareness service now as well, which can be accessed through our bureau, and all the other ones that I've already mentioned on the previous slide. So basically, when you come through the door of a bureau, you can access a multitude of services. It's not just what we can do, it's what other parts of the CAB service can do as well. We work in local partnership. Oh, sorry, I've gone to the wrong one again. So we contribute to South Lanarkshire Council's priorities by we provide personal development and work experience for volunteers, education and rights on rights and responsibilities, which helps to build resilience. We help local residents access cost of living support. We provide provision of advice on benefits, debt, housing, employment, etc. And we work collaboratively to ensure effective and efficient services. And we work in local partnership with the council itself, with NHS Lanarkshire, with the other Lanarkshire cabs, with lots of the community organisations, including the food banks, the voluntary sector service providers, so we work with the credit unions and lots of other third sector organisations as well. We are involved in national campaigns that are run by Citizens Advice Scotland. So the last ones that we kind of did were Worried This Winter campaign, which ran from October last year to January this year. Stressed About Debt, Big Energy Saving Winter, and Debt Happens, You're Not Alone are all parts of the national projects that we've been involved in. And we're involved in national policy work as well, again through Citizens Advice Scotland. So we feed into all of the stuff that goes up to Scottish Government and any other organisation that's looking for information. And the last slide is just our contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, as long as they're easy.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much, Michelle. That was so informative, in-depth, that presentation, fabulous. I really value the work that CAB does. It's fantastic. And really pleased to see the outreach service in Straven now. I've noticed in the a signpost billiard, whatever you call it, in Straven, notifications for it. And I can't remember how often it happens. If you could just remind me.
Just leave it.
Is that me now? Okay, we've set that up, and I struggled for a long time and argued the point that I wanted that set up because I felt 10% of the people that we dealt with were coming in from Straven.
Yeah.
So it was set up to try and do that and save lots of people the journeys, especially in public transport. Yeah. So we are there at the moment 1 day a week, and I know it's extremely busy, so we are looking to increase how often we are in Straven. So we're talking at the moment to the church, but we're trying to find somewhere else that we could maybe hold an outreach surgery to allow us to be there more than 1 day a week, but we are there 1 day a week at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my next question, was coming on to, like, how busy is it in Straven?
It's extremely busy.
Yeah.
It's by appointment only, and I think it's about 3 weeks ahead at the moment because there's so many folk looking for advice up in Straven.
Okay, interesting. It'd be good to talk more about, looking for another place,
Yeah.
another venue for
Definitely.
you. Yeah, right, great.
That would be great.
Okay, thanks for that.
Anybody else? All right. Some of the figures are frightening. Credit unions are the same. We've got a lot of bad debt carrying a lot through COVID. People just couldn't pay their loans, and we're trying to clear our feet with that, but it's very, very difficult. Yep. David.
Sorry, Michelle, I was going to let you off lightly because of your voice, but excuse me. You mentioned core funding. Where do you get your core funding from? And sort of maybe percentage-wise, maybe you don't want to give us exact figures, but just percentage-wise, thanks.
We get our core funding from South Lanarkshire Council. So we get, and all the rest of the funding we get is either from us going out and looking for grants, or through some of the national projects, like we now have, like the Help to Claim service, we have Pension-wise, we have the Money Talks Plus service, which is, they're all national, so bureaus can put in an application to have like workers, and there's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of calculation that Citizens Advice Scotland do to see how much money you would get from it. So we get funding from all of those sources, but we also, part of my job is obviously nowadays is to look for grant funding from different places as well. So we get, we've literally, at the end of last year, we got grant funding from a place called the Hilden Trust to provide immigration advice for the asylum seekers and refugees that are in the Bruce Hotel, and also for Ukrainians or anybody else who's looking for immigration advice. So, and that was like £7,000 to run a service for a year. So it doesn't take an awful lot for a CAB to run a service. But it's once we start it and the need then starts, and it's then what do we do once that year's finished, or a year and a half, or whatever's finished. So I constantly spend my time looking for grant funding to keep services running.
Okay, thank you. Joe Fagan.
Okay, hi folks, I hope you can hear me. Sorry I can't be in the meeting itself today, and thank you for persevering with your voice there. I've always been aware of this issue with consumer debt and household debt in East Kilbride, and it was interesting to see the changes over time. But when it comes to consumer debt, credit card debt is still, I think it was still the top in that kind of hierarchy that you set out. What I suppose what I was interested in is, do any of the kind of lenders, whether it's high street lenders or credit card companies, under their social responsibility sort of policies, do they put any money back into the system that would assist organisations such as yourselves? And I'm just curious as to what were the kind of, that might be out with your area of expertise, and apologies if it is, but I'm just curious about any kind of contribution that some of these lenders make, given the adverse impacts of high levels of debt.
Yeah, some of the banks are now doing some small projects of funding. I know down in England and Wales especially, there is a kind of project that's been set up by, I think it might be the RBS and whoever their parent organisation is. And they now fund a few bureaus down in England and Wales, so they have a dedicated worker that they would feed information into about people who look as if they're about to default on loans or credit cards, and they're then passed on to this or to the CAB organisation down there. They then gaily send them to us if they're from Scotland. So we end up doing it for no money, basically. Do you know, but so that there are some of them who are beginning to take some kind of responsibility. Not enough of them, if you want my honest opinion on it. But there are some who are beginning to take some responsibility, yes. There's a project in Scotland that I'm sure is at the Yorkshire Building Society. And that works the same kind of way for their customers here. There are dedicated CAB advisors within this building society, once a week or something. So if they've got customers who are struggling, they would send them to the CAB advisors there. But again, if they're not within that CAB's remit or area, they would advise them that there's CABs locally. So we could end up with them as well. So some of them are beginning to, not enough yet, I don't think, but they are beginning to take some responsibility, some of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. Anybody else? I'm as bad as you with that mic. So thank you very much for your information. It was quite interesting. I'll let you get away.
Back to the open session. Thank you very much.
Right, see you later, Michelle. Yeah, okay. Right. Preparatory budgeting. Maureen Farr and Sarah Harvey. Over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm here to give you an update since the last time I was here around the East Kilbride's participatory budgeting. Following the consultation and voting process as reported at a previous area committee, schools have progressed with their spend to ensure the minimum 5% is spent in full by the end of March 2024. We're pleased to share Straven Academy's participatory budgeting work as an example of good practice within the East Kilbride area. To gather ideas for the vote, a PB group was established with 11 pupils across all year groups, 4 staff and 4 parents. This group generated 3 choices. The group was very much focused on supporting families affected by poverty with issues around the cost of the school day. Choices for spend included Chromebooks for use out with school, resources for the school breakfast club and gardening resources. The member of staff responsible for the PB remit, who's here with me today, Sarah, ensured the message was shared widely through a PowerPoint presentation at tutor groups, QR codes shared on Twitter, and through the school app were targeted to families as well as pupils. Over 500 pupils voted during the PB process, along with over 100 other stakeholders comprising staff and parents. There were only 3 other schools in the whole of South Lanarkshire who had a higher number of pupils vote for their PB projects, and they were Holy Cross, Stonelaw and Trinity. It's clear that a great deal of work has been done to encourage as many young people as possible to exercise their right to vote in this process. The Chrome from Home initiative won the vote, with people realising that the lack of IT equipment at home is a real barrier to learning and a cause of anxiety for young people who want to hand in homework in the same way as the others in their class. More information on the project can be seen in the appendix. Next steps. PB is now fully embedded in SLC schools through the pupil equity funding. Schools continue to allocate a minimum of 5% of their pupil equity funding to be subject to PB year on year. Optional PB training is planned for August for schools who have new PB leads or need a refresh. Following the voting, Education Resources will provide the Area Committee with the following: a summary report of each school's PB outcomes, available late October, early November, and local authority and area analysis report of this. Case studies of school activity which have had particular impact or success. Education Resources will continue to support schools with implementation of this and monitor and track the impact of this activity. Findings will inform any future PB activity within Education Resources. Regular PB updates and the highlighting of good practice will be communicated to schools via the Equity Hub and through our @SLC Equity Twitter handle. And Sarah is here if you have any questions related to the Chrome at Home. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Questions, anybody? No, I don't think you're getting any today. Thank you very much. It's quite interesting when you listen to what's going on in each school. So, there's nobody coming up. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I'll see you again, no doubt. Our next item is number 6, which is Can Do Community Challenge Fund applications, and that will be Jen Care, I think.
Yep. Hi, thank you. I'm Jennifer Kerr, the Community Engagement Manager. Excuse me, I've got a terrible cold, so I'm trying not to cough my way through this. Hi, so I'm here to present the recommendations for the Can Do Award. And I don't know if you'll remember last June, July-ish, I think I came around to give you a bit of a heads up that this funding program was going to be here later this year. So the fund itself came from investment funding in the budget year 22-23. At the same time, £200,000 was allocated for our most deprived communities for additional participatory budgeting funding. This fund was in $200,000 allocated for a grant fund for areas that didn't qualify for the participatory budgeting fund, and the idea being that this fund ensured that all other communities also had access to grant funding for community-led activities. So the criteria for this fund, the first and foremost criteria was community engagement, had to be undertaken for the applications and to identify a community need. The project needed to be led by a community either of place or interest. And then it wasn't to just sort of fund existing programs. It could fund expansion or new things, but nothing that was just kind of keeping things ticking over and ongoing. And really it needed to be community-led. If there wasn't a need for it, it wasn't to be funded. We scored it against using the scoring matrix, which is can be found in Appendix 1. The panel consisted of 3 members, a community worker who's familiar with the area, myself as a bit of an independent sort of funding person that didn't really know much about the groups but knew about the rules, and also our asset transfer liaison officer who was familiar with some of the applications that were in this pack. So we independently scored them and got together. You'll find the scores and the additional information that we shared as well prior to the meeting. So as a result of scoring against the criteria, the council plan priorities, the engagement criteria, we present to you a list of recommendations for those that met the criteria and scored highly, and those that did not meet the criteria and or scored below the midway point, or that would make them eligible or really didn't meet the spirit and criteria of the fund itself. It's not to say they're not great projects and great pieces of work and great groups, but they're not quite in line for this particular fund and its criteria. We have and we will continue to provide additional support and help match them into funds that are a bit more in line with what they were looking for. So happy to take any questions, otherwise I would just ask you to consider the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions? David?
Thanks, Chair. I'm referring to the Appendix 2 and unsuccessful applications, and just maybe a bit more information in 2134 chaotic productions. And it states application scored poorly on additionality and concerns on sustainability. I'm not quite sure what that means, and that goes for other ones there as well. But I'm familiar, and I've heard of chaotic. There seems to be a well-established drama group for special needs, and so sustainability, I would have thought, was they've proven that they've been around. If my interpretation of sustainability is right, they've been around for a long while. And additionality, given that they're targeting special needs and providing that service for special needs and an outlet for it, I'm not quite sure why you would say they've not got additionality or sustainability. Thanks.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Chair. So our definition of additionality was it was in addition to activities they were already doing. So this wasn't, they were applying for, and again, in terms of sustainability, they were applying for funding for existing work, possibly due to a loss of other funding. We weren't quite sure at the time, but the application was just to continue the work they were currently doing. It wasn't for new and additional activity. And like I said, it's not that they're not doing great things and we don't think they're a valuable project. It was just that they didn't meet that particular criteria for this fund. So we, like I said, we've gone back to them. We're trying to match them up with the Wellbeing Fund, where we think, and also to provide some support around the sustainability, because if there isn't funding for this type of work to continue on a regular basis, and they're year on year having to apply for different types of grants, we could maybe help them with a bit of a strategy around that. So both groups were fairly similar in the same, as it was because they asked for funds for work that they do anyways. It wasn't new, and that was one of the criteria that the fund came with.
Susan Kerr.
Hiya. Yeah, I was just looking at 6.1 financial implications under that. I was just surprised to see like the total funding was 200,000 and expressions of interest were just circa 316. I struggle saying numbers, as in am I saying that right? But anyway, you see the numbers, okay. So it was quite a small amount compared to what the total fund was. I'm just wondering, why did more people not apply? There was only that amount that were, rejected kind of thing, or didn't meet the criteria. And I'm reading that, that it was put forward at community councils, etc. Apart from the, I have heard about this before because you came and did something before and it was very interesting and I remembered it, but I haven't seen it, out there. In my community, I'm not sure people might have been aware, I don't know, aware of it or what.
Thank you. We advertise the way we would advertise most things through the council's channels and through our own networks, and our workers in communities would be, if they were working with a group, would encourage or make note of it when it came out. It was actually open for quite a long time. I think in retrospect, we probably wouldn't have had the fund open for as long as we did. It was open for a good 6 months, and we did some sort of midpoint encouraging as well. Most of the applications didn't come in until the last month, which was why we didn't want to kind of close it any earlier. We thought that's not really fair because we closed it at the end of January. So there was quite a bit of communication. It was over, so there was £200,000 available, and we actually had over £300,000 of subscription or applications. It's actually one of the first kind of heavily oversubscribed funds we've had in a really long time. So that's why we were really careful about scoring and the criteria, because we knew we wouldn't be able to accept all of them. quite a few of them actually came from areas where there was already participatory budgeting funding, though, so that's immediately not eligible. So I think there's 68, I can't remember, and I've not got it in front of me, sorry, of ineligible applications in that figure, and those are the ones we just said no to. You can apply to the participatory budgeting program instead. And the idea of this fund was that it was for areas that didn't get participatory budgeting. East Kilbride, we're only just doing our place, our plan work just now. We're in the middle of our work there that will come back this year. This summer to area committees to update you on, because we're just about finished that. So there will be some participatory budgeting run in that area, and actually one of these applications is for a group to support us with that, and try a different model to see if a community-led participatory budgeting program might be a better way to do that. It was oversubscribed, not undersubscribed, but I think through our community networks they found out about it. But we maybe could be promoting it more widely for groups we don't work with. That was something we took away to learn about communication just in general with community networks. We kind of rely on the community networks to then spread the word as well. But maybe a briefing next time for members would be useful to spread through your own networks.
Okay, thanks for that. Anybody else? Okay, thanks very much, Jen. That was quite interesting again. Could I ask the committee to note the recommendations? No, noted? Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, thank you very much, Jen. I'll let you get away. Our next one is play scheme grants, which I believe there are 5, I think it is. Can we just take them all in one? Is that one? Yep. Yep. Propose on seconder for that. Thanks, Joan. Seconder. Right, thanks. And our next one is community grants. I think there's several of those. Can we take them all together? Yep. Okay, thanks, John. Seconder. Right, thank you very much. Okay, I have no urgent business. Thank you very much for attending.